Go on, take a breath with me. In and out. Seems pretty simple, right? I mean, you do it over 20,000 times a day without even thinking about it. But behind that one simple action is this unbelievably complex and honestly, beautiful biological symphony. Today, we're going to pull back that curtain and take a look at what's really going on inside every single one of those breaths.
Okay, first things first, we've got to clear something up right away. When we talk about respiration, it can actually mean two totally different things, and it's a super common mix-up. There's physiological respiration, that's the big picture, the physical act of your chest rising and falling. But then there's cellular respiration, and that's the microscopic chemical process happening inside your cells to actually create energy. You need the big one, the breathing, to fuel the tiny one.
So here's our game plan for this journey. We're going to start with the simple mechanics of how we breathe. Then, we're going to zoom all the way in to see the amazing gas exchange happening at the cellular level. After that, we'll follow the waste products, carbon dioxide, on their trip out of the body. And finally, we'll zoom all the way back out to see who's actually conducting this whole orchestra.
All right, let's kick things off with the big movements. Section 1, the mechanical marvel. We're talking about the pure physics of how air gets into and out of our lungs. So, breathing in, what scientists call inspiration, that's an active process. It actually takes work. It all starts with your diaphragm, that huge muscle sitting right below your lungs. When you breathe in, it contracts and flattens out. That makes your chest cavity bigger, which creates a low pressure zone inside. And you know, nature doesn't like a vacuum, so air from the outside just rushes in to fill that space. It's that simple. Pure physics, powered by your muscles.
Now, what goes in has to come out, right? But what's so wild is that breathing out, unlike breathing in, is usually totally passive. You don't have to do a thing. Your diaphragm and chest muscles just relax. The natural springiness of your lung tissue takes over, and it's just like letting the air out of a balloon. The air gets gently pushed out. No effort needed.
So we've got the air inside our lungs. Great, but that's not the end of the road, not even close. The real mission is to get that precious oxygen into our bloodstream. So it's time to zoom way, way in for Section 2, the Great Gas Exchange. Deep inside your lungs, you have millions, literally millions, of these tiny little air sacs called alveoli. Now, each one of these sacs is wrapped up in this super dense web of the tiniest blood vessels you can imagine, called capillaries. And this, right here, is where the magic happens. The walls are so thin that oxygen molecules can just slip right across from the lungs into the blood. And at the exact same moment, carbon dioxide leaves the blood and goes into the lungs to be exhaled. It's this incredibly efficient two-way exchange.
Okay, the oxygen made it into the bloodstream. But how does it get around? It doesn't just float around on its own. It basically calls a taxi. That taxi is a protein in your red blood cells called hemoglobin. Think of it like a little shuttle bus. Each hemoglobin molecule has 4 seats, and each seat can hold 1 oxygen molecule. It picks them up in the lungs and then drops them off wherever they're needed in the body.
And now for a super quick chemistry detour. I promise, it's worth it, because it explains why our cells are so desperate for that oxygen delivery. See, getting energy from our food involves this chemical handoff of electrons, a redox reaction. There's a classic mnemonic to remember it: oil rig. Oxidation is losing, reduction is gaining. Oxygen's whole job is to be there at the very end of the line to accept those electrons. That's the final step that unlocks all the energy.
So we've delivered the oxygen. Awesome. But that energy-making process creates waste. Think of it like cellular exhaust fumes. The main one is carbon dioxide, and now we have to get it out of the body. So let's trace its path back in Section 3, carbon dioxide's journey.
Now, this is where it gets really clever. Getting rid of carbon dioxide is way more complex than delivering oxygen. It actually uses 3 different methods. A tiny bit just dissolves in the blood, and about 20% hitches a ride back on hemoglobin. But look at this. The vast majority, about 70%, gets converted into something else entirely, a compound called bicarbonate. That's the main way it travels back to the lungs.
So how does the body manage all of that bicarbonate? Well, it uses this brilliant piece of chemical accounting called the chloride shift. Inside the red blood cell, an enzyme turns CO2 into bicarbonate almost instantly. Then, the cell shoves that bicarbonate out into the plasma. But to keep its electrical charge balanced, for every bicarbonate that goes out, a chloride ion comes in. It's a perfect one-for-one swap. And then, once it gets back to the lungs, the whole thing just happens in reverse to turn it back into CO2 so we can breathe it out. So cool.
This entire system is just staggering, right? But it all runs on autopilot. You don't think about it. So,
Who's in charge? Who's telling your body to breathe faster when you run or slower when you're asleep? It's time to meet the conductor in our final section, the body's control center.
Get ready for this because it's probably the most surprising fact in this whole story. Your primary drive to take a breath isn't a lack of oxygen, it's a buildup of carbon dioxide. The main sensors are these central chemoreceptors located right in your brainstem. They're constantly tasting the fluid around your brain, checking its acidity or pH. When CO2 levels rise in your blood, it makes that fluid more acidic, and these sensors immediately fire off a signal that says, hey, breathe more, we gotta get rid of this stuff.
Now, besides that main control center, we've also got a rapid response team. These are the peripheral chemoreceptors, and they're located in your major arteries, the carotid and aortic bodies you see here. Think of them as backup sensors. They also keep an eye on CO2 and acidity, but, and this is key, they are our main defense against dangerously low oxygen levels. They're the ones that really kick into high gear and make you breathe harder when you're at high altitudes.
And it all comes together in this absolutely elegant feedback loop. It's a perfect self-regulating system. Let's say you start exercising, your muscles produce more CO2. That raises the acidity of your blood. Your chemoreceptors, both central and peripheral, instantly detect this tiny change. They send signals to your brainstem, which tells your breathing muscles to work harder and faster. You blow off that extra CO2, your blood chemistry goes back to normal, and the system calms down, just waiting for the next change.
That entire symphony, from the simple contraction of your diaphragm all the way to the complex chemistry of the chloride shift, it all just happens. It's all automatic, over 20,000 times a day. It's just an incredible reminder of the silent, brilliant work our bodies are doing every single second. Which kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other amazing automatic systems are you and I taking for granted right now?